you're telling it to kids who don't understand.
Yeah.
And so they literally are like pushing themselves to the point of I
Mm,
was one of those kids. I
yeah.
was that kid who I was, homeless living in my car at 18 so that I could intern at the gym.
Warning: Damian Andrews' growing revenue and profit, if implemented, will put more money in your pocket. Please use with caution.
Welcome to Damian Andrews' Growing Revenue and Profit with international speaker and revenue and growth specialist, Damian Andrews. This is your source for practical, usable, and simple action steps that you can do every day to put more money in your pocket. And now, the host of Damian Andrews' Growing Revenue and Profit, Damian Andrews.
And the crowd cheers wildly to the trumpeting blast of elephants sliding through eyes of needles. This is Damian Andrews' Growing Revenue and Profit, the program that deals with all things that puts more cash in your pocket. This is the show that handles your revenue riddles, profit puzzles, operational oddities, and culture conundrums. I am the one, the only Damian Andrews, and on today's show, it is fantastic and awesome to have the amazing Isaac Miller. Now, Isaac is a fitness business owner. He's been a personal trainer for over 10 years with a degree in exercise science. His goal shifted from coaching athletes to mentoring and guiding trainers to learn evidence-based practices to better serve their clients. He shares business tactics to scale their impact, enabling new coaches to go from novice to six-figure business owners while truly changing people's lives for the better. Welcome, Isaac.
Hey, thank you, Damien. I appreciate it, and I appreciate being on the show.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful to have you here, and I love what you're doing as well, because I love that component that you add in there, and you talk about changing people's lives for the better. When you look at, if you want to step back into your history, what do you think were some of the key fundamental principles that enabled you to do what you do so successfully?
Yeah, great question. For me, it was mainly uh, having amazing mentors early
Mm,
on. And if you've read the book Outliers, I think that's a great look at where you can kind of see the people who get on the wave early. And I
mm.
got certified at 18 years old, but I sought out mentors. I understood that like I don't know anything, and I need good mentors. And the
You,
mentors
you,
I sought
you
out,
knew that at 18?
surprisingly, I
You're doing
definitely
better than
went
I did
through.
too. I think it took me to 35 or 40 before I recognized that.
I definitely went through those phases where I had way too big of a head, but I did get lucky where I had mentors who genuinely cared about the true aspect of physique enhancement and helping people, improve their health, and didn't just seek out the mentors who were those generic coaches, and so that taught me at a young age that there was more to coaching than just giving people, some workouts and telling them to eat chicken breast, like that. There was way more than that. And so then as I kind of grew up in training and coaching, I saw a lot of other athletes. And for me, I primarily had worked with physique enhancement, like bodybuilders and, bikini competitors, stuff like that. And I noticed a lot of athletes getting really sick, uh, really getting hurt, like long term damage to their body, hormones
Mm,
being affected. And when it's like, okay, well, what does your plan look like? Noticing that the coaches were not having really any plan at all. It was just, let's put you on this tiny little diet of some salad and chicken breast,
mm.
5 times a day, and work you into the ground. And it was causing a lot of issues. And so for me, it was like, well, I think I can help people like that. If I really, start to dial in my research. And I really think God was just directing my path to that. And then understanding as I got older in this space and seeing that, I can't stop people from coaching, but
Hmm.
I can stop people from being bad coaches. And
Yeah.
if I can do that, then maybe less people would be negatively affected. And then as I got
Mm.
into helping with business side of things, I partner with a company called Trainer Revenue Multiplier,
Yeah.
and I'm one of their programs. And I realized like if we can bring people into our program and push them out as industry leading coaches, but then be able to also teach them the foundation of nutrition and health and training, then not
Mhm.
only are we going to push out industry leading coaches, we're going to push out good industry leading coaches. And that's where, I just really felt in line and just excited about working. I was like in that space and being able to help people become good coaches and then go out and scale their business to lead the industry.
'Cause it sounds like to me, well, I would assume that people don't go and do, and I know this is a rhetorical question, but people don't go to do fitness to get hurt. They're going
Yeah,
there to be better off. Is
think.
that right?
Yeah, and that's one thing where we're seeing the industry, the fitness industry specifically, if we're looking at market trends, with the rise of social media, it went to a very like vanity industry, and it was all
Mm.
about how you look and not about how you feel. It was about you
Ooh.
could see someone with a six pack and say, "Oh, that person's healthy," but have no idea that that person gets 3 hours of sleep a night, is dependent on drugs and alcohol, and like completely just married to their phone 24 hours a day.
Mm.
And that to me isn't health. And so it was this shift in the market, and we're finally seeing now this kind of awakening of
Mm.
people realizing like, hey, I don't think that's healthy. And it's like, oh, you guys just figured that out. It's about time. We've been waiting for you. And so we're seeing it start to shift back, but it's taken a lot of work from a lot of coaches like me, and even better than me, with voices saying like, hey, this isn't health. Like
Mm.
fitness supposed to be health, like health and fitness, but instead we took the health out and just kept fitness and being like, "Do you look fit?"
Yeah, because it sounds. I love what you're talking about there, because it's, as you are aware that, if you want to market something well, tap into an existing belief, and get rapid, you can get rapid market adoption that way. And what it sounds like, and I've seen it where people have this. Yeah, there's a lot on social media that you had to, you work really hard and push really hard just to have some basic level of fitness, and I'm not sure how that belief became. Maybe it was Nike's "Just Do It." We'll blame Nike. That'll do. Um, Sorry, Nike. You do great work. Um, but from that perspective, it seemed like, people started to go that way. But now, if I'm hearing you correctly, you've identified and tapped into that belief that people want that little bit better. They want to feel good about their routines. Is that what you've tapped into?
Oh, absolutely, and it's
Yeah.
it's understanding and even taking it into entrepreneurialism, right?
Mm.
For the longest time, it's grind, hustle, work harder, sleep less, do all of
Mm.
this, and that's great, I guess, but the people that you're hearing say that are getting 8 hours of sleep a night and paying a lot of other people to do a lot of work for them, and you're telling it to kids who don't understand.
Yeah.
And so they literally are like pushing themselves to the point of I
Mm.
was one of those kids. I
Yeah.
was that kid who I was, homeless living in my car at 18 so that I could intern at the gym because I wanted to learn
Wow.
more. My mentor. So I slept in my car and worked another job to help put myself through school, and then ended up, of course, dropping out and joining the Marine Corps, and
Yeah.
found myself doing more fitness stuff in the Marine Corps. And uh,
Yeah, when I
I
was in the army, I went to the gym twice a day. It was
yeah,
like,
exactly. And
what else
so
do you have to
uh,
do?
I managed a gym and ran my own training company while I was in the Marines, and so it was a lot of work, and I was working 80 to
Mm.
110 hours a week for 6 years straight,
Yeah.
7 days a week, and all it did was put me in the hospital. And
Yeah.
like I still deal with disabilities because of that.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I realized like all of that rhetoric that us at a younger age were so eager to take in and adopt that mentality, it was actually very counterproductive.
Mm.
And because if we're looking at longevity of business, I love Costco, the Costco model in the US. If
What,
you
by
look
a
at the
lot?
well, if you look at their trends, they've never gone down in their
Oh, wow.
profits. It's always been a scaled increase,
Yeah.
and it's the key to longevity is just a slow, small increase year after year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're worth a lot, and for too many of us, as younger entrepreneurs, we want that spike, that increase immediately,
Mm.
and expect to maintain that. And it's like it's a lot easier said than done if you take the human aspect into it. And so where I like to marry this entrepreneurialism and fitness is being able to see like, hey, for my coaches who are trying to scale their business, there's a smarter and like not easier but smarter way to do this, healthier way to
Mm.
do this. And it
Mhm.
falls in the exact principles that we teach our clients about health, about longevity, about routines and building good habits, healthy habits, sustainable habits. And, for us who are family men, for me, I'm a father and a husband. I, my family needs to be a priority.
Yeah.
And when I do that, suddenly my work is way more fulfilling because I'm not
Mm.
working just for the sake of work. I'm working to better my family. I'm working for them to have a future. And suddenly my why is a lot stronger.
That's interesting that you mentioned about family and having a deeper purpose for doing it. Um, how is that? I mean, you have touched on that a bit, but really explain a little bit of how that transition happened in your life. You were going gung ho, sleeping in your car, doing the gym, then doing all this work. Was it a case of that you had the family and then decided, okay, now I'm not single anymore. This is actually really important. I'm guessing when you say family, you've also got children. Is that, do you have?
I have a daughter, yeah.
Yeah, so and I know as a father myself, it changes aspects of your life and you see things a little bit differently. Um, but was that part of that motivation to want to change and do things in a more balanced way?
Absolutely. I would say it's looking at your foundational why. One of the exercises that we do with our clients in TRM for the coaches trying to scale is, we call it the 7 layers of why. And it's like,
Mhm.
so what kind of income are you wanting to earn? Say it's, 10,000 a month or 20,000 a month or whatever. And it's like, why do you want to earn that?
Mm,
And it's like a really basic question. It's like, well, I just want to be able to, buy more stuff. I want to, it's like, well, why do you want to, why is it important to earn that much?
mm,
Well, because, I didn't grow up wealthy. I grew up pretty poor. I was, homeless, living in my car at one point. Okay, well, why is that important to you that you don't have that lifestyle now?
mm,
Well, because it was kind of demeaning to me at the time, and I realized that I'm worth a lot more than that, and
mm.
that I don't want my kids to have the same, lifestyle that I had growing up. Okay, well,
Yeah.
why is it important they don't have that lifestyle? Well, because I know how much it hurt me at that time, and I don't want my kids to have that pain of
Mm,
having that same lower income and living in those, lower poverty towns and kind of growing up in that. And suddenly it becomes real. And
mhm.
once you untap that real why, it's such a good intrinsic motivator to where I can look at my daughter and say, like, she deserves way better than I had. And my parents were amazing. They worked real hard, but we were
Mm,
just a product of our environment. And it was like, I'm not going to let my daughter have that environment because
yeah,
she deserves, and my wife deserves better
yeah.
than what, my parents had.
Mm,
And if I can set that up to where, they are forever, taken care of
yeah,
and able to be provided for with what they want, and to do so in a way that's still humble, that is to me the greatest why I could have. So when times ever get hard, per
yeah.
se, not that hard because I can look and be like, well, I don't have a choice.
Yes.
It's easy for me to burn the ships per se, because my why is greater than the challenge.
Fantastic. And from that, you've got that foundation there. But when we're talking about growing revenue and profit, part of it, there's two elements I wanted to look at, because you're taking people that are starting from a novice, so they obviously wouldn't be earning much money, to a six-figure income. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of people that want to understand how that works. You mentioned before about working smarter. So you've, and that's why I wanted to explore that part with your family, because you've got a balanced life, earning the income that gives you the life that you deserve, is well, you feel you deserve, is my understanding of where you're at. And you've got time with your wife, got time with your children or your daughter. And but from that perspective of working smarter, but also too, you mentioned about with the clients that you're working with, it's about how they feel, as opposed to that rah go hard type thing. So you're helping them feel better. How much do you think that making the client feel better has impacted the ability to quickly grow revenue?
Well, there's a book called Mastery by Robert Greene, and one of
Mm.
the things that he says on there is that when you find a good mentor,
Mm.
there's an emotional connection that happens there.
Yeah.
And one of the things that that emotional connection creates is better adherence to what the mentor is trying to instill. And so
Mm.
whenever I show that I truly care about my coaches, my mentees, I care about their business just as much as they do. I'm
Yeah.
in their business, walking with them through it
Yeah.
and helping them and guiding them, and I show that I'm emotionally invested,
Mhm.
suddenly that connection is a lot stronger. And it's no
Mhm.
longer me telling them to do a bunch of things and then them being like, well, I might not, I don't understand it. It's like they grasp onto every word and
Mm.
they execute. And when they
Ah.
execute, because the mentor has walked through it, I've been homeless, I've done those things, and I'm able
Yeah.
to help, give the insights of the failures that I've had, the many failures that I've had, but also some of the successes that I've been blessed with.
Mhm.
Suddenly they to grasp just the gold from it,
Yeah.
from the dirt. And that is where helping them feel better is letting them know like this isn't an easy process, but you have someone who's walked the walk already, who
Mm.
genuinely cares about your success just as much as I care about my success.
Yeah.
And with that, we're going to do this the right way. And so then after that, it's letting them know what they've thought about lead generation, what they've thought about, income streams and everything else. We can throw that aside because we can actually find strategic lead generation that's right for you and right for
Mm.
your market. So you're not just banging your head against a wall trying to do what everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
What you're seeing on social media is honestly just a facade most of the time.
It's even not even a real person now. So it's some
Yeah,
AI bot.
exactly. Exactly.
But the key word that you said there is execute. Now, from what I understand from what you've said, you create a relationship with the client that they trust you. So you got that emotional connection. So when you say, okay, this is what you need to do, it sounds like they're more likely to do it. Is that, am I hearing that correctly?
Absolutely. Like I remember I had a call, and I'll even bring it up. I had a call with one of my mentees just yesterday.
Yeah.
And she had just started, but we had like a really amazing onboarding call, just really connected, and I really established good rapport, and then gave her some things to execute on
Yeah.
afterwards. He literally just texted me uh, yesterday. OMG, I did exactly what you said, booked the call, sold my first gold package at the new price we established. And then I just read, because she just texted me again, OMG, just sold another. Excuse my excitement. It actually works.
Yeah.
And this was a conversation we had yesterday, and she just texted me these today because
Yeah.
she went out and executed. And it just shows like the power of having that connection, that emotional
Mm.
connection of there's genuinely someone in your corner. And I'm happy I pulled this up because this is literally like just the best example I could have. And it's a testimony and power to the coaching isn't that complicated. Once you've
Mm.
built a business, you understand it. it's
Yeah.
fundamentally simple. But when you're starting out, you feel so lost. It's
Yeah.
all uncharted territory. So whenever you can genuinely understand that the person who's leading you
Mm.
is for you and has done it before, and you can just do what they say and it will work, they buy in.
Yeah.
And once they buy in and see the results, oh, dude, the it just keeps going. It compounds.
And I really love that you're talking about working smarter and simple, because I used to think I was alone, because I think life's pretty simple. And we just make it difficult. And I was frustrated because I was talking with people and go, no, it's not. You've got to work hard and you've got to do all this. And yes, you've got to put in effort. There's no question about that. But as Archimedes said, give me a fulcrum strong enough and a lever long enough, you can move the world. So it's about leverage. And I think when you look at the leaders in business, they learned how to leverage. But the other part of that, where I was feeling alone, and then I found a quote, and it read, "Life is simple, but we are intent on complicating it." And that was from Confucius. And I went, okay, I'm not alone here. It's simple, but and that sounds like what you're doing in the sense of when you're growing the revenue and profit component. Well, we're talking about the revenue side of things. So you've got a package together, you've got a process and going, this is what we do, this is how we connect with people. And from your perspective with your clients, it sounds like, as you said, you're creating that emotional connection where they trust you. And that's what sales is. It's about people believing that what you say you're going to do, you can deliver. And from what it sounds like you're doing is you have a way of explaining to people, hey, if you do what I say, you'll sell the gold packages. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, it's more so than just saying that. That is a huge part of it, but it's honestly, and any salesperson will be like, well, duh. But whenever I say it, it's all about the rapport.
The
It
relationship. Yeah.
really is building the relationship, and it's not just being like, oh, if you follow this, plan XYZ, it'll be there, because there's still no buy-in.
Yeah.
But it's having a conversation to the point where they are fully bought into you before you even give them a plan to execute. And where it's like, say, even just teaching them how to conduct a sales call with one of their potential leads. It's like,
Yeah.
before you even get into sales, you need to be talking to them. Like, say, for example, you're talking to a middle-aged woman and you notice that she has, pictures on her fridge or something, and you ask about her kids, and she starts her kids, and then you talk about yours, and you go back and forth, and you notice, at the start of that conversation, they might be back in their chair a little bit, arms crossed, shoulders up. But as soon as you get that rapport, you'll notice the arms coming crossed. You'll notice the shoulders lower and them start to lean into the camera.
Yeah.
Once those physical signs of rapport have been established,
Yeah.
you have them in conversation. Now you can go into their pain points.
Mm.
Hey, I love that we have this in common. It's great. Now, I'd love to ask you, in terms of your health and fitness, why are you reaching out to me as a coach? Like, why is it important for you to take this step in your health? And now, instead of getting that basic question or the basic answers of like, oh, I just want to feel better, you're suddenly getting way deeper answers of like, oh, I know that I want to be a good grandmother or a good grandfather. I want to be able to keep with my grandkids. And I don't think I could do that if I was living now.
Yeah.
You wouldn't get the level of deep answer if you didn't build that rapport first.
Yeah.
And then after you start getting those deep answers, you just uncover those whys and you just listen for like 40 minutes of just listening and letting them get everything out. Then at the end, because you've taken good notes, you repeat back everything that they said. And for like the first time in probably months or years, they've had someone genuinely listen to them, reaffirm that you've heard what they said and that you respect what they said and that this is a safe environment to feel those things. And now you actually have a plan for them to get them where they want to go from where they are now.
Yeah.
And once you do that, you can write your own check. Like they're so just bought into what it is that you have for them, and you haven't even given the product yet.
Yeah.
And it comes to building genuine rapport. And it's the same thing that I do with my clients is I would just get to know them on a personal level, what their pains are, where they want to go, the struggles they've had in their business and in just in their life. and where I can relate to those things. And then from there, I just reaffirm that I've heard them, that they've been heard, that they've been respected, and that they're
Yeah.
in a good space. And then, hey, you don't have to worry about those things anymore because we have a plan.
Yes.
And if you execute A, B, and C, I promise you, you'll see results and you won't have to worry about these things anymore. And next thing you know, you're getting texts the next day saying, "Oh my God, it worked. Thank you so much. This is amazing."
Yeah.
And that those texts wouldn't come if it was just, "Hey, just do this A, B, and C."
And from that, again, what I'm hearing from you, which is a fundamental of sales, which I think a lot of people miss, because you mentioned earlier about, you wanting that spike, you wanting that, yeah, let's do it, get it now. But what it sounds like you're doing is, or what I'm hearing from you is that you spend the time to get to know the person, get to know what their needs are. But underlying that, what you mentioned before, and that's why I wanted to go there, you have a genuine care about what it is. So you combine those two together, and as you say, you can write your own check. Is that, if I'm putting that in a nutshell?
Yes, absolutely. And it sounds like it's funny because when you say it, just from a 40-foot view, it sounds like, oh, you're just manipulating. And it's like, oh, you're manipulating for a
I don't
sale. And
hear
it's like,
that,
no,
because I hear you
this
genuinely care.
yeah, and it's like that. Well, I get this a lot from my clients. It'll be like, you have to build the rapport, you have to genuinely understand,
Mm.
but because there's a price tag attached to the end of it, it's like they automatically think, oh, well, it's so
What's the
sale, it's a sales.
value? Yeah.
And it's like, well, no, it's
Do you value
you
your
trust the
service?
doctor, and
That's an
as soon as
interesting
you
point.
go in, they click the billing hours. You trust your lawyer, but as soon as you call, he's clicking billable hours. Soon as he picks up that phone, doesn't
Yeah.
mean you don't trust,
I
so
got two rate
it's
increases from my lawyer this year so far, saying that we're doing it because we want to add extra value to your service, and it's like
yeah,
we're raising our rates twice.
exactly. So it's not disingenuous. Like it really is like, if you truly care and trust, and then your value increases because of that, because other people don't care like that.
Well, that's that psychological point of view, as you said. Do you value yourself, which is that's a whole nother topic, to actually say, hey, this is what I'm worth.
Yeah, and that imposter syndrome is real, especially with new coaches,
Yeah.
because they either feel like they know everything,
Hmm.
and they have all the value in the world, and then suddenly they're slapped in the face because they don't get any sales right off the
Yeah.
bat, or they undervalue themselves and they feel like they don't know enough and that
Mm.
they could never be in a position to coach others, even though they have probably all the knowledge that they need to have. They're continuing to learn and be students. And I think that's important on every level, to just continue to be a student of your craft. And so it's teaching like the dollar sign. We have to detach ourselves. And oftentimes I even teach like, if you have a business, you realize your business it's its own entity. It's its
Yeah.
own life. And you can treat yourself like you are a employee of your
Mm.
business. And if you have good SOPs or good standard operating procedures written out, then you can just kind of go off of that template that's been built out and be an employee. Your sales process is built out, your prices are built out,
Mm.
and you don't have a negotiation there. It's your business is its own entity. Be the employee of it and just
And
do
that's
it
part
what
of
you're.
is that part of that process when you're dealing with that? Because I love that point of value, and I want to bring in. I remember one of the early investors in Amazon when he first met with Jeff Bezos before the company had started. It hadn't started yet, and Jeff Bezos was talking about this company. So he hasn't even got it in his garage yet, and he was talking about this company is going to turn over $100 billion. Back then that money didn't even exist. That was more than a lot of countries were worth. And this, he's gone, wow. But is that, from that perspective, you've set a price point, and is that part of that process you go through and you go, well, this is my value that I'm adding, and you're looking and go, and from a perspective as well, because there's a lot of talk about click funnels and things like that, but really you're identifying, going, actually, this is my price point, this is where I'm sitting, and if we don't align, then maybe we don't align, that there might be someone else that aligns with you. Is that a process you take as well?
Yeah, so with value, part of it depends on the client. Obviously, it depends on the trainer that I'm working with.
Yeah.
Some, they're just so ingrained in being employees that you have to get them to keep that employee mindset for a
Mm.
while until they
Yeah.
get the reps in on sales and get, you know how it is. Once you
Yeah.
do sales and you get told no enough times, eventually you get immune to it, and suddenly you get better at speaking and better at
Yeah.
building the rapport and doing all that. But there
And it's
there are
amazing
other.
how you do that. I remember I remember the first sale ever. I was doing it, not getting sales. And the first sale I got, I was like, um, I was excited, but I didn't really think about it. I went to the next client, and I didn't even really have to do anything, and they signed up. And it's that success breeds success. It's kind of funny how
Yep,
that works.
it compounds.
Yeah.
And then with other coaches, it's really establishing the math behind it.
Mm.
And for me, this is what it was. I really, because I've always been kind of entrepreneurially minded. I was that kid at 5 years old. I would go to other garage sales and buy stuff just to bring it back to mine and mark it up by like 10 cents.
You're
And so
doing
it's like my
well.
garage sale.
I
I
was
was that.
riding around with a lawnmower strapped to the back of my bike. So you were
Yeah.
doing it smarter, I think.
So it was for me, it was easy to be in that entrepreneurial space, but
Mm.
undervaluing myself, I had to put the math to it. And so the guy who started and founded TRM,
Mm.
he was one of my mentors, Matthew Park. He sat down with me and he's like, "Hey, look, how much money do you want to make per hour?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Well," and he goes, "Take this back. How much is a typical one-time session at the local gym that you train?" I was like, "Well, that's like $100 an hour." He goes, "Okay,
Mm.
so we're going to start at $100 an hour because that's what a typical trainer would be worth. And you've been doing this for 10 years. You definitely worth more than that, but we can
Yeah.
go ahead and equate." Because how long does it take you to do a training program
Mm.
for a client in like over the course of a month? Well, it would take me about probably 2 hours. Okay, so that's 200. And then he'd go, "How about their nutrition plan? How long would it take you over the course of the month?" Oh, probably another 2 hours. Okay, add that. How about in their updates, their check-ins,
Mm.
stuff like that? Let's go through the list of what my core offer, my actual product to the client is, and how
Yeah.
long it would take per client over a month. And at
Mm.
the end, it came out to like $1,100 or $1,200 for a month.
Mm.
And I was like, "That's a lot." He goes, "That's your value." So
Yeah.
what we do here, we divide this by like 2.5, and that becomes your monthly rate if they lock in on a 6-month contract.
Yeah.
And the price point that we established before, we'll just take that down by about 10%. And that becomes your 3-month paid in full. And then we
Mm.
just multiply that by 2, subtract it by 10%. That becomes your 6-month paid in full. That is your 3-tier options that people have
Mm.
come to you. It's set in stone. That's your value. It's your worth. And they're saving money on that value because we've seen what the value is added up. And it put it into perspective. And I was like, if I take the emotions out of it and I just look at the data, which as a health and fitness educator, I'm big on data
Mm.
and having to look at it unemotionally. I was like, well, you're not wrong. At
Yeah.
that point, that's what it is. And so whenever a client says, "Hey, that's maybe too much money for me, it's out of my price point," I say, "No worries at all. I have another coach that I think would be an awesome fit for you. I know they're a little bit of a cheaper price point than I am. I understand I am a little bit more expensive as a coach, but by all means, I would love to give you some free value. I have an ebook that I would love to give you so
Mm.
that you can just with some kind of value, and I'd love to give you the information of this other coach." And
I
at
love
that
what you
point, I
Go ahead.
outreach to one of the coaches that I have in my network.
Yeah, I love what you're doing there, and that you've gone there, especially for a number of the smaller businesses that are listening in, is that what you've gone through and worked out is what your time value is, because I, a lot of people underappreciate or even don't acknowledge the time component, the value of time. You only have 24 hours in a day. Everybody only has 24 hours a day. So what is your time worth? And it's really important to link that to what you need to live as well, because if you then discount your time below this is where people get into financial problems. You discount your time below what your cost of living is, all of a sudden, and you're taking on clients that are at a price point below where you need to be. You're not in a position then to take on other clients that are above that, like you've done. You're going, okay, you've identified, that where you're not at my price point. Here, I've got someone to help you. So you're still creating that relationship, but it's freeing you up to actually go and find those clients that are at your price point. Therefore, you're not going to have that financial pressure at home, which is, again, as you established at the start, is really important. So I love that you talked about that, because a lot of people don't realize to go through and work out what their time value is. The other part I want to go back to in this is you mentioned about when you talked about this spike, this instant success, as opposed to little steps and making that go forward. And we know that spikes, if you look at any bull run in any market, they're very exciting, but they come crashing down very quickly. And then you talk about, and you look at sustained success. So those little bits, and Einstein said, the most powerful thing in the universe is compound interest. So by building up that relationship, how much do you think that's really important to have that longer term view in making those little incremental steps, not only just to the long-term success, but also to your own ability to get there and sustain it?
Yeah, great question. And with it, we have to have a level of humility, which I think having a good mentor is so important. Because if we don't have that level of humility, which none of us really do unless someone kind of has been there, done that, and lets us know what's in store, we think, man, I can handle the world. I can do anything if I just hustle hard enough. And then next thing we know, in a worst case scenario, someone has that mentality, and then it doesn't meet their expectations. They don't get the clients and clientele coming in that they think they should.
Yeah.
And now they're faced with reality of like, am I cut out for this? And then the imposter syndrome sets in, and then they quit. Or it's the opposite. Say they're an influencer with 100,000 followers, and they put out this product that is a great product and a good price point, and suddenly they have 1,000 to 2,000 clientele coming in at one time, and they don't have the width span or the systems built out to maintain that.
Yeah.
And suddenly they're getting out a pardon my French, a half-assed product that is getting a horrible return on investment for their clientele. And suddenly their clients are quitting, they're not retaining those people long-term. And then those people are going out and saying, don't go to this coach. It's not a great coach. And suddenly you have to quit, and the best way is to understand that, it takes some patience. It takes building out a good product, which does take time to evolve as you go through clients. But if you take it, one or two clients at a time, you're able to evolve the process and still maintain a level of good rapport with those clients so that they continue to stay as you evolve, because they understand that you are going to be changing over this time period. If they do, and if you really, take it slow and give the best product possible to the people you're already working with, they'll bring all the revenue and clientele you need. They'll continue to build your team. And a lot of lead gen that, at least for the fitness space, people are like, oh, it's all social media. It's all social media. Well, honestly, a lot of lead gen comes from referrals. And the referrals will just go to your social media to validate who you are that their friend told them about,
Yeah.
And they might message you on Instagram, but they came to you because Susie down the road was talking about you at the book club and how you lose 10 pounds. And like that's where it is. And we had talked about the price point and the people who might not be, they can't afford your service. And still, what's important for the listeners is that it's important to value your time, but have something of value to give them when you turn them down, or even if they say no, and they say like, oh, I just don't have the income for it. Now's not the right time. Well, don't worry. I would love to give you this resource, this ebook or something. I've noticed when I did that, even though the clients weren't on my roster, those leads didn't convert. They've brought me more clients than
Mm,
some of the best clients have brought me in
yeah.
referrals because I took care of them even when they didn't have the income. But guess what? They have friends who do, they have family
Yeah.
who do. And so whenever those friends and those family are talking about coaches, they
Mhm.
wouldn't talk about the coach they ended up hiring. They would
Yeah.
refer them to me. And it was such a great experience to be like, wow, they genuinely, even though I couldn't help them, I
Yeah.
did. I still gave them something of value and I still nurtured that
Mm,
uh, relationship because it bared fruit over time. And it
mm.
ended up giving me a return, even though I didn't actually gain that client. They'll bring clients if you still nurture that and give them some value.
I think it's really important what you mentioned there about that rapid growth and being able to fulfill what you say you can fulfill. And optimism bias kicks in a lot, and we think we can do a lot of things. And it's like when we actually get to do it, there's so much there to do. And one of my clients, they became a client. They were a business that was turning over 35 million, and they went to 110 million in 2 years. And that's where I got involved because they didn't adapt their systems to suit. And you really can't, and I'm highlighting this story because this business failed, it went bankrupt because the directors, I did all this, they had a payment of $8 million that would have pretty much kept them alive. I did the report, I had everything. The director just needed to sign it, read it and sign it. He was so emotionally distressed that he couldn't do that. And so he never did it. And that was a tipping point that it went over. And I think the point that you highlight there about this rapid growth of the stress, I'm relaying that story, it's in a different category, but just to say that it happens in big, and this director was part of a multinational conglomerate originally. He was a director of that. So it's if you scale that quickly, it can create a lot of stress if you can't deliver. And that's where what you're talking about, these little steps, building the foundation as you go, is better for you, not only for your long-term success of your business, but for your own health, which is where
Oh
you play
yeah.
as well.
And systems, and when I teach, it's like systems, there's multiple types of systems, and it's
Mm,
like making sure that the softwares are ready, for that
mm,
type of flux, making sure that you have your marketing campaigns established like months in advance, making sure you have email chains set up ready, making sure you have triggers and flows set up for certain clientele to come in so that you're
mm,
not just to make this on the fly.
yeah,
And this is one of those things where I might have a new coach come in and I'm like, you want to make your systems as if you were able to get 100 clients tomorrow. And like that's how you want to make these systems
and
because
test it.
in a perfect world that
Yeah,
happens, right?
yeah,
But if it doesn't, it will over time. And if you have those
mm,
systems, there's way less tailoring throughout the next, several months. And if we just go back and revise every quarter with a new quarterly plan, we can keep some sustained growth. And with that, it's like, but systems, now we go, that's like superficial systems for your business. Now we have to go deeper
yeah,
systems of your, what's your morning routine, your evening routine? How's your self-talk?
mm,
What
yeah,
are you doing daily? And like you going to fast food and eating at McDonald's every day for lunch because you're busy and on board meetings and doing all kinds of things. Well, that's a system that you've built
yeah,
for yourself. And over time, that's going to, raise your blood pressure, and suddenly you're getting really stressed at board meetings and you don't know why. Well, it's
yes,
because you built life systems that aren't in line with who you're trying to be professionally. And we have
mm,
to realize that professionally, there's people who can't maintain high level executive positions because their health fails them.
mm,
And well, it's just because, stress. And it's like, well, no, it's because you don't eat healthy, you don't exercise, you go home and, start drinking alcohol and, just relaxing every day, which is fine, but it's going to catch up to you.
alcohol
And
doesn't relax you.
blame,
It
yeah,
changes your state, it doesn't
you can't
relax you.
blame work stress
Yeah,
for all of those health issues because everything's a system.
yeah,
Your whole life is built on systems that you create. Habits, routines
mm,
are all systems. And if you want to be this high level executive and run these high level companies, you have to build out all of your systems to make that happen.
Yeah.
And that includes your lifestyle.
Yes. I love that you've gone there, because that whole component of your life and balance of that, because the key word that I hear all the time from people in that category is, oh, I'm back to back. You know, I've got to squeeze this in. And it's like, well, if you're like that, then you're probably not working smarter. Isaac, if we're going to, because we're running short of time, if we're going to sum up, I'd love to chat for a lot longer. Maybe we have to schedule a part two, because there's so much more we could talk about. But from this perspective, if you were to sum up, you know, in a nutshell for the listeners, put it in, what do you think are the key points that you were able to implement to achieve the success that you've achieved?
I would say number one is have faith. For me, it's faith in God, but
Mm,
I have faith in something that drives you to doing more
mm,
than what you're doing.
yeah.
Because if you believe that you are doing something greater than yourself,
Mm,
it's an as Simon Sinek says, it's an infinite game. If you're playing a finite game, you're going
mm,
to fail it at some point because that game ends.
yeah.
But if you play an infinite game, you're playing for legacy that lives on after you,
Mm,
then there's always somewhere to go with it. So I would say make sure that you have some kind of faith. Two would be finding the right mentor who can be emotionally invested into your success, just like you're emotionally invested in theirs.
mm,
Because if you can have a mutually beneficial relationship, you're going to be given amazing opportunities and doors will open.
mhm,
And then three, have patience,
mhm,
because it's at the end of the day, business is a game, and you're going to lose some, you're going to win some. If you take everything emotionally, you're going to obviously always stay on the losing side of that game. Remember,
yeah,
it's not for life. Your
yeah,
life is your family, your friends, being able to
mm,
come home at the end of the day and, kiss your wife and hold your kids. Like, that's life. My
yeah,
business, it's a game.
yeah,
And even though I love my clients and I'm emotionally invested in them and want to see them succeed, the business side of things, it's a game of math, it's a game of numbers, it's a game of leverage.
yeah.
And if you can understand that, it's really easy to emotionally detach and play the game.
Yeah, I love that. Great advice. Isaac, thank you very much for taking time on growing revenue and profit. It's a pleasure to have you here. I'd love to have further chats in the future, but great work. And I love your passion and your caring for your customers.
Absolutely. Thank you, Damien. I appreciate it. And I hope your listeners gain something from it.